You're listening to the Bella Italy podcast.
Well, where did you go? I went to Padova. I went to Parma. Well, what's that
Went to
like?
Stresa.
Stresa. Where's that? That becomes the story that you tell.
Yes, exactly.
Slow it down, let it breathe. Take the corner, walk with me. No flash, no rush, just taste and see. That's the Italy I need. Bella Italy, stay with me. Pane, vino and a slow sunbeam. Bella Italy, vicino a me. I want the life, not the
Hey, everybody, we are back around again. Anthony and Brian and Anthony, how are you doing today, my friend?
Great. Just got back, B-Rye, from Italy on basically Monday morning. Today's Wednesday, so I'm getting over the jet lag, but I'll tell you, it was a fantastic trip. We won't go too much into it on this podcast, but obviously every time you go, it doesn't matter if it's raining, snowing, sleeting, hail, it doesn't matter, but the weather was great. I always recommend going in October. October is a great time to go. And you were there too. You were on the other side of the country when I was there, or I was leaving when you were coming in, but yeah, it was a great trip.
Yeah, good.
But nothing compares to being on this podcast with you. I mean, there's things you can take into consideration. Me sitting around in the Groni looking at beautiful vistas, or me and you face to face. So it is what it is.
And here we are, and that's the pull. That's what brings people back. That's why we have so many people listening to this podcast right now. They
pounding
can't
on the
stay
doors.
away.
Yes.
Here's our thing. If you can't go to Italy, at least get on and listen to the podcast. I mean, at least that, and it feels like you're there or something. But no, October. You're right. October is
it's a great time.
It's usually great. November is usually rainy. December opens back up, and you got some hit or miss. But you can actually, down here in the South where I am, you can actually feel. Yeah, the warmth of the sun in December and T-shirt and that kind of thing. Just depends. But yeah, generally speaking, October is a great time to go to Italy. The crowds are starting to die down. Kids are back in school. All of that makes for a great vacation. Yeah.
But I mean, the one thing I'm noticing as we go every October is really about that October 20th timeframe. You'll see that third week. The not in Sicily as much, but definitely in that Rome to the mountains, you'll see that dip in the weather, right? But you'll also see the rain, and you're like, even now as we're dealing with customers on the ground, you're seeing some weather patterns that are just the barometric pressure changing, and the weather and the rain. Yep. That's why I always recommend the first 2 weeks. If you're going. Don't get me wrong, third and fourth are great, but being on the water could be a little fishy because of the change in the
It depends
atmosphere.
on what you've got in mind. If you're if you're wanting to get out on the water, do some boat tours and excursions like that, it can get dicey, and we have had to pivot to plan B, and that's why they come to Italy with Bella, because we get we have partners and we can lean on that. And this got canceled or it got moved a day or two. Great, no worries. We're gonna set you up to do this, and this. And so the show goes on even if the rain is coming down. So that's the perk. Right. Well, if you are joining us for the first time, hello. Sorry not to notice that you were visiting with us today. Just going on and doing our thing. But welcome. And this is the Bella Italy podcast. We are a part of another organization, a company, the Italy with Bella travel company. You can check us out online anytime, ItalyWithBella.com. But basically, our job here is to set you up for success on your next trip to Italy. Whether you come to Italy with Bella or you go on your own, hopefully you have the tool set that you need to have a great trip. And so in this particular series, we are in season 5 here. And so we're taking you beyond the typical tourist experience in Italy, past the postcards, cliches, crowded bucket list. In fact, that was our episode last time. If you want to go back and listen to it, Beyond the Bucket List. This is a special series that's inviting you to rethink Italian travel, focusing on escaping the crowds, discovering hidden regions, savoring authentic food traditions, and embracing slow, meaningful journeys. And so, all in all, we're helping you become more of a traveler and less of a tourist. Because, as we've said it many times before, what people remember is not what they ticked off of that bucket list. Standing 50 yards in front of the Tower of Pisa, doing your pose that nobody else had ever thought of before you came along, and you've got it on Instagram now, and you've got your little tick in the box. That is not what you remember. What you remember is the more intimate gatherings around a table, talking to a restaurateur or other travelers or other Italians, and having the moments where you're actually connecting with people, with the culture, with the food, understanding, learning, growing in your understanding of Italy, what it is, and how to enjoy it. That is what will also bring you back and set you up for success in the future. Do you disagree with any of that, sir? And how dare you if you do?
No, I don't disagree. I think what happens is Italy can become a bucket list for people when they just focus on the major cities, and I think that's something you got to realize. It's like, okay, I get it, saw it. I think you're not experiencing Italy till its fullest by doing not even the 1%, right? So I think you're spot on. I think. Even now, I just tell you the trip we just took to Parma and I'm drawing a blank to Bologna.
And Parma's not on everybody's bucket list.
No, and,
Bologna may make it on some, but Parma, not very well known. By
not
us
well
Americans.
known. And if you're even talking to the locals, meeting with new partners, they're seeing the percentage of their tours, right? What I always ask, especially small towns like we were in Bergamo. What's the percentage of Americans? Oh, you're the first ones this year. Oh, it's mostly French and Dutch. Okay, and then you go to Parma, same thing. They're seeing an increase to 40% where it used to be less, but now you go to Bologna and it's 80%, right? And even that. And I don't, I'm not trying to get off on a rabbit trail here, but even Bologna, when you and I went like 4 or 5 years ago for the first time, it was still not as crowded, still had a lot of university feel. This last time, I don't know if you knew this, but Bologna is ripping up all the streets. I don't know if they're putting a tram in, but that main street going to Maggiore, Piazza Maggiore is just all
in construction.
It's all in construction. God knows how long it's going to be like that. But the crowds were even worse because of not being able to go into the streets as much.
Right. The congestion gets...
Yeah. So... but even the Parmas of the world is it's almost an identical city in a lot of ways from the food culture wise, right? Maybe in university and history might be a little bit different, but you're noticing that even in Parma, that percentage of people going up on the American side is getting known. That's where you need to, even in that particular region, is when you start looking at little towns that, hey, I can still go to Parma for the day. We'll talk about a little bit about that, but we're still not telling you to rip the Band-Aid off and not go to Bologna or don't go to Rome, but take the full experience. Take the full experience in. That's all.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, and here's the deal, guys. This is kind of the bottom line of the angle that we've got right now and why we're saying what we're saying is there's about 70 million tourists. Italy itself has 60 million, 70 million tourists. So we've seen certain towns absolutely blow up. A town like Positano during the arc of an 8-hour, 10-hour day, it'll blow up 3 times its population. And then it deflates in the evening and it comes back down to more manageable levels. But you can imagine the impact. 70 million tourists, and they're flocking to just 1% of Italy. during the year. And, this is geographic. I'm talking about geographic area, 1%. And so there's so much overlooked, hidden, authentic places ready to provide you with that same or better experience that you're getting, that you're after, and that you're getting in those bigger blown up cities or the more touristy tracks. And so what we're trying to say is there are parallel tracks to run on that are much less congested, that are going to give you so much more, and that you're actually going to remember. But what do? I mean, and this happens to me. I travel here in Europe. I go to a place, if it's a country I haven't been to yet, of course I'm doing the same thing most people do, is I'm looking at the top 10. What do I have to see? What's the big thing? What's the attraction? What do I have to eat? What do I have to go? What do I have to do? And that's all a learning curve and experience, but it doesn't mean that's all there is, and it doesn't mean that's the best experience for you. And so that's what we're hopefully helping, not to peel off the Band-Aid, but take off the blinders so that you can see a bigger picture.
Yeah, it's just funny. I had a customer call, and this happens, we have several calls a day or Zoom calls, and they fill out a form. And obviously, we're not going to get away from Rome, right? Especially for a first time, or a Venice for a first time customer. But it is having those conversations about, we talked about this, what do you want to get out of it? And it's always experience. You're mentioning experience. So, these kind of conversations we're having on these podcasts, take these, digest them, and say, all right, big city, and then let me pepper and season my trip or my vacation better. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, and here's the rub. All right, so this is what's in it for you, the listener, is that you're not a casualty. I want to. I checked this out on a couple of news sites because I wanted to make sure that this was actual. This was real. It was reported. Different news sites, travel news, etc. Couple of reputable papers all reported the same thing, and you can look this up, guys. A Las Vegas-based tourist. Her name was Regina Simmons. If you're out there, Regina, hi. Hopefully, you're a follower of the Bella Italy podcast now after this experience. But she was, this was this year, a couple months ago, so not in the fall season, but in the spring season. Her husband and 2 daughters, they wanted to visit Positano, and they were enticed by the TikTok and the Instagram posts, but what what they experienced was not what they saw in the pictures, in the videos, and all of that. I mean. And so what happened? She recounted her story of complete chaos and shoulder to shoulder with other visitors. She's 38. She came over, excited to have planned her trip of amazing views and calm, empty streets. And after a 10-hour flight from Las Vegas, this is her quote. This is her words. Regina explained, in the videos, you see everything looks completely empty and calm. In real life, there were far too many people. It was just bananas. We were overwhelmed by the amount of people. We had to look for a restaurant to hide in and make a game plan. And so, it's just that it's not a bait and switch, but you've got so many people out there, influencers, who are putting their stuff out on social. And, you don't know how long they wait in order to make that one shot or take that video without the crowds around, or how much is AI these days? You don't know.
Even our social media person, I'm like, where are you going? She gets up at 5 a.m, so there's no crowd. So, so we can set that, beautiful picture, but it's not really setting the right
It's
truth,
not reality.
I guess you would say. Yeah, reality, yeah. So
it's not reality. And here's the bottom line, she's just one example of several that I had found this year that were really disappointed, disillusioned with Italy, and because they came over in the high travel season, and they went to the bucket list
travel
type
cities.
places,
Yep.
and they did not have a bucket list experience. But here's the bottom line especially for Americans. This was a poll that I found associated with one of these news clips that I saw. Of 60% of Americans said they would choose a more expensive location if it looked impressive in photos, and we are so. We're driven by what we this is ad and advertisement. In America, you didn't know you were hungry for a hamburger until that commercial came on and told you, oh, look how juicy this burger is, and so all of a sudden you're hankering for this burger. And the same thing happens here. You wouldn't know where to go, what to do, unless there was that TikTok ad or that influencer influencing you to go and look for that same experience. The problem is you're not going to find it a lot of times. And so this is where we're trying to offset that disappointment, disillusionment, educate people about how Italy works, and get them out beyond that bucket list to have authentic experiences that are every bit, as gratifying as you would have imagined that wonderful place might have been, had there not been the crowds and just the over tourism and the crowding that we're seeing.
Well, take away the visual part of it. Take away the actual social media aspect. Just a ChatGPT. It's another thing just that most people are looking like, I'm not going to pay attention. I don't have TikTok. I don't have Insta, but I'm fascinated with AI. Right. And we dabble in it because we have to look at it. What's coming up? What are the actual experiences they give in restaurants? And it's all based on what the input is of people put on Google. Right. So you're going to have the worst restaurants because they are 30,000 reviews and it's a 4.7 and it's tourist. So even from that perspective of a bucket list, even look at the ChatGPT or, whatever the other AI tool you're using, you're not getting the off the beaten paths, and you're not going to get a real experience just because it's listed so high on AI.
Right.
So I think that's the other way to look at it. Take the social media aspect out of it itself too, I think.
I did a search on overcrowding in Italy using AI, and it was interesting. I'll give you just a couple because this is the reality that I'm seeing over here, and this matched my experience here with what AI was saying. We've talked about Lake Garda, Lago di Garda, and Sirmione, which is a really famous town at the base. And I know you're rolling your eyes, but that's a place that people want to go. They want to go to Pisa too. You can't tell. We need like a blacklist of all the places not to go in Italy.
I would love to do a trip where we do all of them and we do a podcast from Pisa, Sirmione, and we just really it's still, it's still better than being in Nashville.
Anthony Bourdain type.
Yeah, exactly.
But Sirmione, 75,000 tourists in this tiny town in one weekend. Chaotic bottlenecks in narrow streets. Venice. Everybody loves Venice. Massive daily influx. Entry fees applied to control day tripper traffic. Cinque Terre, another place that we don't dissuade people from going to, but we try to keep it where they're having a good experience, but getting in and getting out. But here's what it said about Cinque Terre: over density on hiking paths, trial of one-way rules and sea restrictions. Florence and Rome. Strained livability, rental pressures, over-tourism cited as a plague. Lake Como and Lucca. Lucca's a favorite of ours, actually, but visitor caps at landmarks, bans on aggressive tourist solicitation. And so all of these things just go in to say that Italy is struggling under the strain of these tourist lanes that it's created. And, some of that's not Italy's fault, but some of it is, and all of this is coming to bear on the experience that you have over here. And so that's what we're trying to help manage, and that's the why. That's what's driving this conversation about, let's get beyond the bucket list. Let's see the other 99% of Italy. Yeah, still go to Venice and Florence, but we're going to tell you how to do that and not just get bottlenecked and straining, because you're not going there so much to be a tourist as you're going there as a traveler. And that opens up a whole other 99% of Italy, which most people never see. And that's what we want people to come and have in mind, so that they actually experience something and enjoy Italy like we do.
We all know how stressful planning a trip can be. Juggling hotels, trains, tours, figuring out where you're going to eat, it can suck the joy right out of the trip. That's why I love this story from one of Italy with Bella's travelers. They said that Italy with Bella planned their entire trip through northern Italy, and they handled everything: hotels, tours, even a custom app with GPS, restaurant contacts, and schedules. And it all works offline. What really blew them away was the personal touch. Every place had been experienced by the Italy with Bella team themselves. Every meal, every stay, every tour, there were no bad meals, no hiccups, just pure Italian magic. So, if you've been dreaming of Italy, let the experts handle it. Go to italywithbella.com and see why travelers call it the trip of a lifetime.
All right, so let's dive in. I wouldn't mind to kind of come back around, tether back to where you went on this last trip. You were talking about you guys came over. You spent some time in a different lake region than we usually would suggest for clients. It's interesting. Lago Maggiore is an exceptional experience. It's different than Lake Como. It's different than Garda, but it's an exceptional experience. I know you guys had a little bit of rain while you were there, and that always colors the the lenses, of the experience. But I'd like to hear your take.
Yeah, it's sometimes on these podcasts, and I like to keep secrets, and but but I don't mean it that way.
The cat's out of the bag now, Aunt.
So we went to Lugano because the reason we went to Lugano is because in the Lake Lugano, we went there because most customers, they go to Como and they want to go to Switzerland. So the easiest way is to jump on a train. It's 35 minutes. You're in Lugano. Enjoy your day there and come back. Nice time. Food was okay. It was crowded. It was a big festival. I love festivals, so that was fun. I loved stepping into a new town and there's what the heck is going on, and you're asking the locals. I love that. I love making that. I love that part of the trip. But then we moved over to Maggiore. And as you know, we've been to Garda, I've been to Iseo, I've been to Como, Trasimeno, lakes around Rome. And Maggiore is a big lake, similar to like a Como. And I know you went there recently, I think a couple months back, doing some research for the team. Doing research for the team. And we just focused on Stresa. And as soon as I got there, dude, I was hooked. We had great food. The people were great. No Americans. Zero, zip, none. Being October, obviously it was getting quieter, so you get more of a German, maybe Dutch, maybe some Swiss. I would say Swiss, but it was friendly, safe, clean. They had a festival there. Just a typical local vibe. And I fell in love with it. And then we took a nice boat tour to the islands, botanical gardens, and I think it was the last week. The last week was the week we were there to do the ferry. But overall, I was like, wow, and I always say this, guys, and, I am blessed, Brian and I are blessed that we can travel around Italy and check out new things. But, there's no reason not to go to Stresa if you want to be on the lake. I just don't, I've been to Como, been to Garda, all beautiful, all great. But I was just like, geez, this is a great hop-off point coming out of Milan, on the water, a couple of days, get down to the wine country of Piemonte, and enjoy so you get both aspects of the hills and the wines with the Alps, and then you get the lake. It's just, most Americans don't think like this, right? And obviously it's not Rome. You're not going to get the history, you would out of a Rome antiquity or a Florence Renaissance. But I'll tell you, Stresa was just, it was so local and really high end food. It had the Como feel, but not the Como snootiness. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons that we've been pivoting here to other places like that is we have a lot of partners because Como has been a really well established destination for us as a team, but also for our clients, and we've recommended Como for years. It's become so heavily traffic and tourists, that
it's the Positano of lakes. That's the way I look at it. The Positano of lakes.
It's becoming, it's almost unpleasant at times, depending on when you go, where you go, what you do. And so looking at our partners and talking to them, and they're doing the same things. They're just like, it's not fun anymore. It's not our passion. We want to get to a lake like Maggiore that is still large and still needs us as far as, the boat tours and a lot of UNESCO sites to go see around the lake, things to do, day trips to other towns on the water. And, we've talked about it a couple seasons ago. I'm not a big lake guy, especially coming from the Nashville metro area. That murky brown water just kind of,
Eat me some catfish.
gives me the heebie-jeebies. And
what was that?
Something
just touched me
past my leg. So that's something I've shied away from. But I tell you, the lake experience in Italy is radically different. And yes. Lake Lugano has a different feel. It's right, you're on the border there. Lake Maggiore is interesting because half of the lake is in Switzerland, half of the lake is in Italy, and so you've got this bipolar thing going. You've got a great mix of culture, and it's still classy. Lake Garda, depending on the side of the lake, and if you're on the northern side or southern side, it can have kind of this German camper kind of feel to it, and tents, and it's like that. And there are some towns like that in Maggiore as well that were camping areas, and that's great. But it means that's the kind of people that are coming down from the north over the border to a place like Maggiore. But you get this feel of you're by the water, which is really fun in Italy. The water's clean. You're in these boats. You're taking day trips. It's not, you don't really need a car. You've got trains. You've got, boats. You've got ferries, you've got taxis, you've got means of getting around and going to see some of these palaces, the botanical gardens. It's an immersive experience. It really is.
I mean, it was just, the weather was just spectacular. We got in the boat, we head over to the island, Pescatore, which is Fisherman Island, right? And we just had lunch overlooking the water. It was fantastic. Got back in the boat, came back. What I noticed though, it is the north. So even though Stresa is not geared towards tourism as much as Como or Maggiore is not, but being in the north, there is an efficiency and they do it better and they're focused more. Where in the south, you go into Basilicata, some of the smaller towns of Potenza, they're not.
Leo, if you're listening.
I mentioned it. See if he's actually listening. We'll test him. But
our team member is from Potenza.
They're still figuring it out, right? They're still figuring it out. They don't know how to, manage it or market it or what does our customers want. When I went to Stresa, I'm like, they got this. It wasn't tourism they were focused on, but they understood, what was needed to grow the tourism business. So I was really, really impressed. And I know you loved it too. When you went back, I was just impressed even by the food. I mean, I thought the food was better there than it was in Como because it wasn't geared toward tourism. That's the biggest reason.
And that's a huge point right now for those that are coming over and you're hungry for Italian food, as you should be. Having that food culinary experience in Positano has gotten really tough. It's gotten hard. It's like eating in Venice. It's like eating around Lake Como. You've really got to be selective. You've got to know where to go. It's getting more difficult to have. Even in Rome, city center, you can have some amazing food experiences if you know where to go. The problem is they're becoming fewer, while others that were traditionally, the typical Roman cuisine, they've blown up. They got the line out the door. The quality is difficult to manage, and all that's normal. That's just business, and that's normal. But it's unfortunate because it makes it more difficult. But that's what we're talking about: is getting away from that bucket list mindset, having a little bit of curiosity to get off of that beaten path, going to a Maggiore instead of a Como, and having a more authentic experience, being surprised by Italy, and not, you're not there just to be entertained. You're there to be educated, to learn, to get into the culture, and to have some of that change you. And I think that's the heart of being a traveler, is you're going with a curiosity in order to learn, to immerse, to enjoy, to be educated, and you come back changed. You come back with stories, and it's not stories of how long you had to wait. It's like, you remember going to Disney in the 80s, and it was before all the skip the line stuff, and those were the horror stories of taking your family, and you had to go stand in line for hours to get into these places. And Italy has progressed, and there are some skip the lines to get into the Vatican and all that kind of stuff. But it all comes with a price nowadays, as we're seeing. We had clients just today asking us, "Hey, I had to move my day here because the dignitary was visiting at the Vatican, and so they closed some things down. Can we pivot?" Well, it comes at a price, because a lot of times you got to have a guide with you now to do the skip the line stuff. If you don't skip the line, look at the long queue that you're going to be standing in, and you only have so many days and so many hours in Italy, and you're going to be wasting that waiting.
Well, you also can't go by the seat of your pants. You can't just say, well, that's the one thing we found out, is like, all right, what can we get for them tomorrow instead of today? And there's nothing available. It's like trying to buy a sold out Taylor Swift ticket. And I know how you get those really early, Bri. So, these are the things that are different. In stress, we said, all right, where do you want to eat tonight? I'm like, all right, let's go pivot. Let's go to this place for lunch. And it was, obviously it was October, but it was still, a lot easier to get a reservation, a lot easier to get into a museum, walk in the botanical gardens and stress up. Wasn't really crowded. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's the difference. But, like we talked about at the beginning, you have to have a mentality when you go into your trip. I have two anchors, or one anchor is Rome, and then where do I want to get the experience? And that's, right. I don't want to scare people. I love Rome. I was just in Rome on Saturday and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Take Rome any day of the week. I know Rome though. Yep. I don't stay. I'm not hanging out in Piazza Navona. So you know what I mean. But it's going to take you 10 visits to fall in love with Rome in the way that you and Brian and me like Rome, right? So, if we had to drop me off in Italy, I'm fine with Rome for the rest of my life. It doesn't bother me. But obviously, if you want to experience it from when you're traveling, I definitely think you need to get to the Maggiores and the stresses of the world. Okay.
And so talking about Rome, where do you pivot outside of Rome? One of the trips that we took over the last couple of years was to investigate some day trips outside of Rome. I remember the last time I was there, I landed in Rome, got a rental car, and in 10 minutes in Ostia Antica, looking at the Roman ruins. And so by 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, coming up from Sicily, I'm standing in Roman ruins outside of Rome. Zero.
None. You could have slept there. No one.
I'm walking through ruins that you can't do when you're at the Roman Forum in the city center, because, knowing where to go And then we stayed on these little coastal towns, and you're eating seafood in Lazio, and there's the typical stuff, but then they're putting the seafood spin on it, and so you have your classic Roman dishes that are seafood based instead of pork. But it's interesting. It's really interesting, and it's great, and it's off the beaten path. But one of the other trips that we had taken, I think I was with Leo on that one. We went north of Rome, and we went to the lake area of Bracciano. And you've got these little, hilltop towns in Tuscany and Lazio. And, you're an hour outside of city center, but it's like you're in another world. And we started thinking, why not have our clients with Italy with Bella's are coming over. They're just getting off of a 10, 12-hour flight. They're tired. They're frustrated. Maybe there were delays. They're stressed. They're with, they're a couple, the two couples, a family. Why not give them a break just to catch up? When they're getting off the plane, you're 45 minutes down the road, you're in this beautiful lake area just outside of Rome, and you can breathe and you rest and you have a good night's sleep. I tell you, that is a miracle cure for being able to really handle the crowds and being able to absorb what it is. Because what happens is you get off that plane and you're running to your first tour, and you can't process anything. You've been on a flight for 10, 12 hours, and however many hours it took you to get to the airport, and, a sleepless night the night before because you had to get up early. All this kind of stuff happens. And you're getting off, and you're there in city center in Rome, and you're hungry, and you had to skip lunch because your flight was late, and you're on this tour. You can't enjoy it. You just can't. You don't have the mental, emotional capacity to do it,
Well, it's even the point. That's a great point, by the way. And Antica Ostia is crazy. I was blown away by it, and you're right. There was no one there. You're walking around for hours. It's just like going to Pompeii in a sense. Obviously not the same, but even you mentioned Lazio. You get into Lazio outside of Rome, like you said. You don't know if you're in Umbria or Tuscany. It's just beautiful, and and people just think, it's like going to New York City and not knowing about upstate New York, right? It's the same thing. It is, and then is that you could take a quick ride out to Viterbo, a nice town. We were in a place called Palazzo Farnese. The Farneses, if you know the Farnese family, in Rome, in city center, there's the Palazzo Farnese there that goes across the Trastevere, across the river. Massive palazzo. But there's one there. Literally, we were there an hour, not one person. And our guide, Ava, who's on one of our podcasts, says, yeah, this is where they film a lot of movies about the Pope, because no one ever goes here. It's the spiral staircase in this building, and this palace was unlike anything you've ever seen, but there's no one in it. It was just an empty palace. And it was beautiful, huge, amazing gardens. But these are the things you can do outside of city center and have that experience and still talk about the same family that's in the city center of Rome, and really have a full type of tour within Lazio. And the drive there is spectacular. It's just, these are the things that, we discover, our partners tell us about. And it's funny you mentioned it, Brian. It's even the partners get sick of the Vatican. They get sick of being a city center. They love, hey, you want to take us to Viterbo? You want to take us to Gaeta? You want to take us to Antica Ostia? Whatever, right? They're the same way. They want to get out there and show these gems to our customers, right? So
it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable for the client, and it's enjoyable for the partner who's taking them as a guide. And this is what we're experiencing. Whether you were just in Parma, I was just in Padova, and these towns in both of these different regions, they're so different, and from the mainstays that Bologna is right in the middle of those two, and you go to Bologna and you have kind of this cookie cutter experience, which is great. And I love Bologna. We do. I try to stop and have a lunch or a dinner. You just had a great lunch in Bologna a couple of weeks ago, and it's hard to beat. It's really hard to beat. But when you're in a Parma or a Padova or a Lucca, and you're getting this a little bit smaller town feel. It's walkable. There aren't the hordes of crowds because the big tour buses with 60 plus people aren't there every day. It's more, school trips, and, you're getting a more hometown feel. That's something special. That's something precious. It's something enjoyable. And you come home with that, and people ask you, well, where did you go? I went to Padova. I went to Parma. Well, what's that like? Stresa. Where's that? That becomes the story that you tell.
Yes, exactly.
And Padova has a great feel to it, and it has characteristics of the other bigger towns that you might recognize, but it's not a fight to enjoy it, and it's 45 minutes from Venice, easy to get to. We looked at a 5-star hotel there that we had just met at an expo here recently, Leo and I, and doing an on-site visit there. They were like, we're really few Americans. Very few Americans that come here. They just don't know about us. They don't
pass
know.
Right by it. Zoom, zoom, zoom. They go to Verona, Venice, Verona.
And I said, well, because it's a little bit, it's a 10-minute, this one hotel that we went to is a 10-minute train ride. We didn't stay there, but we did this visit. They were so hospitable. They offered us breakfast from the gorgeous breakfast buffet that they had. And, we're sitting down just chatting, and we're looking around. You're kind of in the countryside, but again, it was just 10-minute train ride from Padova out into the country. And I said, well, what is there to do out here? Well, I mean, the hotel is built on thermal waters, and so they have like 6 pools. Only one of them is not thermal because it's a little bit higher up, kind of a jacuzzi type pool, but all the other pools that they have are heated, and they're using their thermal waters, and so it's got all these minerals. They said that the water consistency, because of what's in it, becomes a natural cortisone that they mix into this mud, and they put this mud experience,
spa day.
And I said, okay, well, what else is there to do, just not at the hotel? Well, there's wine tasting, horseback riding. There's all these kind of things right, 5 minutes from, because you're in the middle of the countryside. But, if you didn't know that it exists, you wouldn't go and have that experience. But it's an incredible experience, but you need time. And I think that's what I want to get to on the next episode, is about slowing down. And that's not something that I normally like to hear, and I don't know about you, but probably not. Slowing down is not like our forte, and especially as Americans, because we've got our list and we've got our thing and we got a da. And, slowing down is not necessarily, but when we come back exhausted from a trip that's supposed to be pleasurable, supposed to be a vacation, and we've got all these things ticked off our list, but we can't remember any of it, because we were jet lagged, because we did it wrong, because we fought the crowds. It's just wasted. It's, you're wasting your time and money. You're wasting, Italy in a sense. Italy's being wasted on this tourism instead of travelers who are traveling well when they come over to Italy. So that's where we're going. We're going to have 1 or 2 more episodes here in this little mini series, and I'll give you a teaser for what we're going to get into on the backside of season 5, and this is hopefully the hook that will keep you through the next couple of episodes, because I know this is you want all the tips and tricks, and we gave you a few on this episode, but coming over and traveling well in Italy is an art. It's something you learn, and I think it can make the difference in your next trip to Italy. Where we're going on the backside of this little mini series here is something we've never done before. In the couple of seasons that we've got under our belts here, we're going to talk about the macro regions of Italy. And so you guys know that Italy has 20 different regions. 5 of them are autonomous or semi-autonomous, but 20 total in the new count, if you're going by modern metrics. And then there are 5 macro regions, just like in the U.S. Anthony, you're originally not from the South in the United States. You're from the Northeast.
New England, yeah.
New England area. And so that's a macro region of the United States, the Southwest, the Northwest, etc. Italy has the same thing, and we're gonna take each of those one by one, and it's gonna be a big chunk to talk about on a single episode, but it's gonna set us up for next season, and so we're doing this on purpose. I'm excited about getting into it because there are some things that we've never explored before. It's going to push us to talk about some things that are really off the beaten path and about slowing down and experiencing Italy in a way that you're not going to get on the top 10 blog that you've probably seen a million times. And away from the bucket list. That's where we're going.
Yeah, I think the customers, I think the listeners are going to love it because we're going to go what they know, broad, right? And then whittle down. And so they'll have a good overall picture. So I think it's going to be really helpful. And to look at it from, hey, let's look at the north of Italy. Let's look at the lakes. Let's look at Tuscany, and just not talk about the two major cities that we talk about all the time, right? So I think listeners will really enjoy, hearing a little wider swat. Swap? Yeah. What's the word I'm looking for? Swat. Yeah, swatch. Yeah.
Suave.
So I think it's suave. All right.
Well, thank you for tuning in. If you have the opportunity, you're on a platform listening to this podcast, we would love your feedback, questions, and comments. You can send that to us at podcast@italywithbella.com. Go to italywithbella.com and sign up for a free consultation. What can they expect in that free consultation, Anthony?
The free consultation will be me and someone else will be on a Zoom call with you, and we're basically going to, talk about Italy, what you want to get out of it, how can we help you, how can we, assist in helping you with a trip, an experience that you can rave about with your friends and family for years to come. It's just we want to make it memorable. If you go with Bella or don't go with Bella, but it's just something that we want to help guide you. We love what we do. We love our country, Brian and I do, and we just want to be there to help you and to offer you advice. And obviously, we'd love to have you as a client, but we're there to, just offer advice for you.
Yeah. No timeshares, no Ginsu knives. It's not the shopping network. It's just a call and it's free. So head on over to italywithbella.com. If you're on a social site or a podcast site and you want to give us some feedback, we would love that. A 5-star thumbs up means the difference between somebody finding us and not finding us. So thank you for your help to get this message out about Italy and helping people enjoy their next trip over. Hey, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us on this adventure through Italy's less traveled paths and richer travel experiences. Until our next journey, we hope you will embrace a slower travel, savor every taste, and allow Italy to enchant you.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Great job. Arrivederci.
Arrivederci.